Hey, Chris, nice to meet you, man. My name is Bryden. Good to meet you, buddy.
Right on.
So yeah, I kind of had a question really about how and why you were so apt to not only talk to the media in Charlottesville, of which I did, full disclosure, I was there as well. Didn't run into you there, but you really talked to HuffPo about Ricky Vaughn and got on Nealon's side with that bullshit after Ricky didn't do shit on my podcast, guy. He was not even aware of that crap. And then Nealon doxed Ricky, and then you really helped with that. So I was just curious about why you thought, that it was really cool to talk to the media. It's just kind of a weird thing, right?
So I don't recall a conversation with Huffington Post about Ricky Vaughn. I'm not saying maybe I did it and I don't remember. But
maybe it was Slate, maybe it was somebody. I don't know.
I literally
I'm not gonna rag you for being an alcoholic because I really
talk
am
about
too.
the media more broadly. I really don't recall a conversation with mainstream media about Ricky Vaughn. What I did. No, here's what I did. What I did. What I did was, Huffington Post asked me. Here's all I told Huffington Post. I didn't speak with them at length about it. Luke O'Brien at Huffington Post asked me if I was confident. I posted the picture of Ricky Vaughn to Gab, and Luke O'Brien asked me, "How do you know that's his picture?" I said, I don't even know who gave it to me. Somebody did. Nobody's corrected me. That's the extent of what I told Huffington Post about Ricky Vaughn.
But you thought that was a great idea, though.
Yeah, I did think it was a real good idea. Because I think Ricky Vaughn is a subversive piece of crap who is out here trying to destroy the movement, and he succeeded, by the way.
But movement? What movement? I mean, I now I understand where you're coming from. Where you said we should have gone further after Charlottesville. I completely disagree. I think that Charlottesville was an ultimate failure. And it wasn't actually, I mean, obviously this is because of, the people in Charlottesville, the police in Charlottesville, etc. But a lot of that had to do with the people in Charlottesville themselves, which were the participants of that rally, which it was weird running into a lot of these people that I'm with you on doing the edgy jokes. I think that is awesome as far as jokes go and stuff like that. But you took it a big step too far talking to Vice. She took you very seriously, whether you wanted it to be that way or not. So she took you very seriously. And we probably, if we were wanting to have anything accomplished, take a step back, which is what Ricky Vaughn was actually in favor of quite a bit, was getting rid of the whole Wignat circle. Do you think that Heimbach was a great guy or something like that? I don't believe that you do, really.
Well, I think, look, prior to what actually got Heimbach ostracized, I had probably had more disagreements with Heimbach than most people in the movement. Okay, he was real big on the left wing economics, and it's never been my thing. And I had more reasons to throw him under the bus than most, frankly. But if you look at what's going on here, well, let me address the media thing because you got several different questions there. Okay,
right.
So let's just understand something. If I did that thing with Vice, and then after Charlottesville, I went home and continued running credit cards, it would have been the best thing that ever happened to me. Okay. The whole point of it is a publicity stunt. Okay. And I've never made any secret about that, by the way. I told her that, by the way. And so Vice News knew that I was putting on a show for them, and they reported it as news, which is completely irresponsible on their part. At least I have the decency to tell people that I'm an entertainer. Okay. But if it wasn't for the fact that I got framed for a crime, at least for my situation, that would have been the best thing that ever happened to me because it was huge publicity, and that's what I wanted to get. The problem was that I got framed for a crime afterwards and then sued, and they're using this heavily edited video as their excuse for doing all these things to me legally. Were it not for that, everything would be fine for me. Okay, I don't believe necessarily if you can count on the integrity of the damn system. Then I don't know that there is such a thing as going too far. I at the time thought that there was still this free speech thing going on, and I could continue to run an honest business. And what ended up happening was the system failed. And so, okay, fine. I got to take that into consideration. I got to think about that in the future. And I've toned my rhetoric down a great deal since then. But at the mindset of the time, I think it was a good. Now, on talking to the media more broadly, I still do it. When reporters contact me, I'm generally happy to speak to them. And the reason is this: I don't have anything to hide. Okay. And I also am very concerned about the future of this country, that I think that I think that we are heading for things that I dare not even mention on this YouTube channel. And I think that it's important for us to try to talk it out first. Okay. So these, people talk about it's like the enemy media or whatever. And I'm like, Well, yeah, they're the enemy. Why don't I try to have a conversation with them before things get to a point where we're not talking anymore?
But you know as well as I do that they're going to misconstrue your words, and then you're doing it for your own, your own brand, your own show, all of that, of which has been moderately successful. You obviously make a living from it, so that's all well and good, except that it does. Kind of it feeds some bad people, but you can't really be held too terribly responsible for the whole Wignat crowd of that. But like none of it really has to do with fine, you talk to the media, you do your whole thing, but why give up Ricky Vaughn really over Nealon? Do you realize that Nealon doxed him because he didn't even listen to my fucking show that Ricky Vaughn was on when I exposed I exposed Paul Nealon for his weird misgivings and how he had been misgiving to the quote unquote movement?
Well, I don't know who you are or what your podcast is. I've seen a lot of people talk shit about Paul Nealon, and I trust him more than you. But I think that the Wignat thing is a class division in the movement that was wedged on purpose. I think it was intentional. And I think the same thing of this thought patrol nonsense where people are running around attacking women. I think the same thing of all the boomer jokes. Okay. It's an ethnocentric movement. Okay. You don't start dividing people along class and gender and generation. It's a bad idea. And Ricky Vaughn didn't care about that. That's exactly what Ricky Vaughn set out to do. He was a subversive and he needed to get excised.
Okay. Let's get Beardson in here.
All right, so how are you doing tonight, Mr. Cantwell?
Are you one of those fucking douchebags who was on that Baked Alaska podcast I hung up on?
What Baked Alaska show?
All right, never mind then. Go ahead.
No, I'm a huge fan. I wanted to come in and ask you. So you, but I had something in mind. But now you're talking about like the thought patrol and all that. So. You don't want to divide people based on, whether or not they're women, whether or not they are, Wignat or old or what have you. Should we divide people based on whether or not they've smoked meth in the past before or not? Maybe do you think that's a good?
If somebody's got an active drug problem, you got to keep them separated. I would completely agree with that. If 2 years ago somebody fucking went on a drug binge for 2 weeks and learned his lesson, no, I don't think that's a good idea to excise out of a dissident movement. No.
You don't. So you're like completely okay with having like a movement full of former drug addicts then? You think that's
if they're former drug addicts, I think there's a lot of redemptive value in the things that we're doing. And I think a lot of the people who have been involved in this thing have a lot of fucking prior problems. I think a lot of people have current problems that are worse than a former drug problem, frankly. Okay. So if somebody went on a fucking 2-week drug binge 2 years ago and then they're like, hey, I'm sober, let's go get some shit done. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea to keep them involved.
Yeah, I mean, that's mainly most of the alt-right, right? Like you're basically a bunch of deranged individuals that have decided that you're going to take this cause upon yourself.
All right, this guy's a douchebag, and I'm not going to talk to him anymore. If you want to mute him, you can, or I'll hang up.
Oh, you don't want to have a debate? Are you scared of me?
No, I'm not having a fucking debate with you. That's not what you're a douchebag.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll have to let you go, Beardson. But Chris, let's get to the bigger issue. When is doxing appropriate? Over the past 2.5 years, we've seen the alt-right just turn their guns on each other frequently, much more than on the enemy. So when, Chris, is doxing appropriate?
Well, I try my best to have sympathy for people who get their lives disrupted by their identities being discovered, but it's difficult for me to do because I got my real face on everything, right? Everybody knows who I am, okay? So, I would like to get our discourse moved to the point where people can be upfront about it and go from there. In the meantime, doxing is something that you do to your enemies, okay? And so,
why are you such a pussy?
Dude, I'll tell you what. You want to fucking meet me in person? You fucking find out if I'm a pussy. I'm not gonna have you I'm not gonna be your entertainment for you to talk shit on the fucking radio. You want me to hang up on him, or you want me to mute the fucking thing?
I took care of it.
He's
sorry,
gonna keep coming back.
What's your position on doxing? Because I'm sure that in the overwhelming majority of cases, you're completely opposed.
The truth of the matter is, it would be inaccurate to say that I'm completely opposed, because when other people get doxed, it's in my interests. Okay, I'm not going to do it to people who are good folks who are on my side or whatever. But
we have with you lasts like 30 seconds because you're a little pussy bitch, Cantwell.
You're a
bald
fucking pussy
faggot.
bitch. Hide it. You'll go fucking hide in your fucking room. You come see me in person, call me a pussy to my face. We'll see you as a pussy.
Gingers.
So if that's going to keep on happening, then I'll hang up and we could talk about it another day, pal. But real briefly, the I think that doxing is something that you do to somebody is a strategic thing. If it serves your interest, do it.
Well, so it served your interest to dox Ricky Vaughn, fuckface? Like, come on, dude. You did it. You did it. Everybody knows that you did it.
First of all, I didn't dox Ricky Vaughn. I didn't do it. It's just
you and Nealon did, and then you were just like friends with Nealon over the fact.
Yeah,
like, come
exactly.
on, man. You're trying to have a redemption arc. Why would you do this?
These guys are losers. Okay, you're a faggot.
Oh yeah, we're losers. Yeah, dude. You fucking. There you go. You're a federal asset hanging out.
Sorry. I want a
fucking
civil
people are
discussion.
incapable of having a conversation.
Yeah, I want a civil discussion. Brundlefly, do you have a civil question for Christopher?
Not really. I kind of just came on here to give him backup against that kind of bullshit. I fully, I don't know. So I'm just gonna sit tight for a minute until something comes up.
Look, those guys. Look, I'm happy to debate with people who are worth debating. I have no idea who either one of those guys are. They don't have a point to make. They're just throwing insults. It's not a debate. There's no point in talking to them. And all I'm doing is giving them attention, and I'm not going to give it to them. It benefits them too much. So, doxing is something that you do. I want to know, and there's a lot of people who are working on this, by the way. I want to know who every communist was in goddamn Charlottesville, okay? And we've got a pretty good long list of them, and I want every piece of information I can find about those people. And eventually, when the tables turn, I want to see those people prosecuted, okay? And I want those names and addresses and every other piece of information public so that they you want to hang up on him, or do I?
You're a bitch. You're a bitch.
Look, if you can't control this thing, then I'm going to have to hang up. I'm not going to give those guys any more attention. You can't control this thing?
They're coming back with multiple identities. That's why when I find them, I'm booting them. So
real quick, and then I'm going to, if you may, I meant to come hang out with you another day, and I'm sorry I didn't get back to you on the email. Maybe we'll do this another time. We can get into more depth, but I'm not going to let these guys, bomb on here all day and give them fucking attention. Okay. So I think that doxing is something that you do when it suits your strategic interests. And so every communist I want doxed, and I want them to live in fear until they are in prison. Okay. And if there are people in the movement who are dishonestly and disreputably trying to destroy the thing, and you're an idiot when you start attacking the people who keep your secrets. You deserve what you get for that. Okay. Ricky Vaughn was running around throwing shade at people who kept his secrets for him. That's a stupid thing. And I'm glad he learned his lesson. All right. He was a bad actor. He was doing it on purpose. He didn't have the best interests of the movement, the race, or the nation in his heart. And he just thought that he was going to go make a bunch of money by scanning social media and building up a database of people's information for himself that he was going to go sell to politicians. And so, yeah, I think it was an appropriate thing for him to get doxxed. And if anybody else tries to do that, I'll think it's appropriate for them to get doxxed too. Now, I ain't doxxed nobody. Okay. I got shipping information for hundreds of nationalists, and not one of them has had their information betrayed. I got a user agreement with people. Okay, I do business. I got people's credit card numbers and shit. All right, I don't do any of that. But when Nealon dropped it, I said, yeah, good, because Ricky Vaughn's a destructive influence, and he needs to shut up. And it worked.
What is your view on Paul Nealon? You were praising him. The man seemed poised for perhaps winning a congressional seat. Then he many people think he went into a tailspin. So what's your perspective on Paul Nealon?
I think that Paul Nealon found out about how bad things were, and he couldn't keep his mouth shut about it. Okay. And believe me, I can understand that impulse. And so while I would have much preferred to be talking about Representative Nealon, who didn't tweet his copy of Culture Critique, I've had some detailed discussions with Paul, and I think he's a stand-up guy, and I think he's a man of genuine integrity. And so anybody who attacks him, I'm suspect of them. If you want to say that Paul Nealon's a lesson on how not to run for Congress, I'll agree with the assessment. But, these guys are trying to attack Paul Nealon like he's a bad guy, and he's not. He's an honest, decent person who tries to do what he thinks is the right thing, even if it's not in his own best interests. And I got a lot of appreciation for that.
And do you know what he's doing these days? Because I haven't heard much from him the last few months.
I haven't seen him do a whole lot of publicity stuff ever since the election was over. But I talk to him from time to time. He frequents some radical agenda communications channels, and he's a listener to the show. He calls in from time to time, and so I communicate with him. But I don't know that he's got a particular project that he's promoting.